Michael Yao Show.
It's so amazing that when you travel, because you do a lot, how obese America is compared to everywhere else you go. You
We
know,
don't,
because as soon as you land at the
yeah,
airport here, you're like, oh, wow, it's a big difference.
we don't eat real food. That's just a fact. Like, it's so funny how they're like, no GMOs, no GMOs. And you're like, it's too late. It's been too late for probably like 50 years. There's so much chemicals in our food that our body literally cannot process. There's, even our vegetables aren't real. Like they're, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why, like, I noticed, and like my boyfriend, he's from New York, but his dad moved to Australia 15 years ago. So he goes to Australia a lot. He has some stomach issues. I've had stomach issues. We both notice whenever we go to Europe, whenever we go overseas, just eating exactly how we eat here. We're still having bread. We're still doing this stuff. We just feel like I eat pasta in Italy and I don't get a stomach ache.
And you don't feel heavy at all. Yeah.
And that's because their wheat product is a completely different strand than ours. And ours has been genetically modified and butchered because they're bigger stalks, or like the same way that our chickens look like bodybuilders. And then
I totally agree, because I'm a huge college football fan, and I see these kids getting recruited now. They're like grown men, like kids that were 17 years old like me playing football. Does not look like the kids playing football today at 17. Like, these are like
the same way you shouldn't get your period at 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like we're
There's
all
something
like,
they're putting in the food.
absolutely. So we are genetically modified. We've been modified. Like, with the hormones that are in our food and in our milk and all this other stuff, the fact that our diet doesn't shift, and that, we're more for if everything you're opening is in a bag as opposed to like a vegetable, or, even like the good thing about me going on the strict diet, which I'm not nearly as strict as I was before, but it was 3 years where I was super strict, doing something I would say that's pretty much similar to paleo. What helped me is it changed my palate in a lot of good ways. It really kind of changed my gut, so that I still think I have IBS, but the symptoms of it are like once a month, as opposed to it being like once a day, every couple of days. Like, I was in constant like gastrological distress. So I learned enough to understand. And then also, just like what you did, even 2 weeks of changing a really bad diet, when you go back, your body has harsher symptoms. So that, like, let's say you think you're allergic to eggs. You cut eggs out for 2 weeks and you go, okay, let's go find out. You could have been covering up, or your body adjusts because we're so adaptive. Your body wasn't really showing full maximum I'm allergic to egg sign, so that when you come back 2 weeks later, a month later, like now when I mess up my diet, because there's certain things I have never put back, when I mess it up, I get a shooting pain up my stomach. I've fallen out of my chair and just held myself, because it's like, I've had that pain before, but it's 10 times worse. And in some ways it prevents me from going back to really bad habits, because I can't handle the pain anymore.
Have you ever had one of those blood tests, those food blood tests?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah. See, the thing that scored so high on mine was coffee. And since I've eliminated coffee.
You kept doing it, right?
Yeah, I kept
doing it. Even though it told you.
It said, you drink coffee, you will be inflamed. It's bad for you. I'm like, coffee. And then after the ICU and all that stuff, I don't drink. And literally, my wife always looks at me and goes, you're so thin now because you haven't drank coffee. She thinks that's the game changer for me. I used to drink 5, 6 shots of coffee a day. I never drank coffee. I was a shot taker.
Yeah.
But just not doing that anymore, I think, really changed me a lot.
But I don't think and you use the word that I think is important. I don't think you were thin. I think you were inflamed. So there's you can actually look at certain people that like there, how like my sister always says that she's like, I'm like, we always did it with cats. We'd be like, I'm not fat, I'm fluffy. Yeah. And so we would always say the same thing. You're just like, I'm not fat, I'm fluffy. And there is a little bit to that, where there's some people where they've gained weight and that is technically fat. There's some people where they're just puffy like,
in the face.
Yeah. And you can kind of see it to the point where when they do like, and I say cleanse in this very like general sense, a cleanse could be like, you just cut out, gluten because you think there's a problem with it, or you cut out, like I said, eggs. Like there's like the 7 main allergies. But to me, your body is constantly sending you signals, whether it's like I've had eczema my entire life. And when I first was going down this path of trying to heal my body, it wasn't about the eczema. The eczema was uncomfortable, but it was never as uncomfortable as the gastrological issues. So I go, because this was 10 years ago, I was like, maybe it's gluten. That's the hot button allergy. Maybe it's gluten. So I cut out gluten. 80% of my eczema went away.
So, I mean, I tell people, food is the main thing to change a lot of problems with your body.